One of the biggest mistakes that authors make when they write a book is they're writing it for this mass audience in their mind, this huge crowd. That's a really fatal flaw. The Bible's not for everybody, right? 50 Shades of Grey is not for everybody. And those books have sold millions and millions and millions of copies. And so Tim wrote this for two real people, and he wrote the chapters as though he was writing emails to these real friends of his because he wanted to help them. The 4-Hour Workweek came out about 15 years ago. It, at this point, has sold millions of copies. I learned a ton while working with Tim Ferriss over the course of 3 years as to what made the book so successful. So in this video, I'm going to be going through a list of things that have helped make this book a perennial bestseller and how you can use some of these principles of what made it a success in your career as an author. So the first thing is that Tim is really the embodiment of his book. At that time in his career, he had launched a successful supplements company where he was able to make, I think it was $40,000 a month, and his time was being totally consumed by the business. And so he very much became a case study by getting his hours per week down from like 80 to 100 down to 4, and I think it was as low as 2. He initially was thinking he could title the book the 1-Hour Workweek or the 2-Hour Workweek, and the publisher said that doesn't even feel realistic. So he actually increased it to the 4-Hour Workweek. The important thing here is that he solved his problem first. It was his most painful problem, and then he shared the recipe in the book. And that's really the first step with any best-selling book. Is the author truly a success story of what they're preaching? So many books that don't feel quite right, especially in personal development and self-help books, it's because the author is talking about themselves in more of an aspirational way or kind of bending the truth. You'll feel like they're preaching at you and telling you what to do rather than simply saying, here's what I did and here's what worked for me, and if you're in the same position, you can try it too. It's a subtle thing, but it makes a huge difference in how good the book is they speak from real experience and they come across as credible. All right, so the next thing the 4-Hour Workweek did was it created a category, and that category was called lifestyle design. When you're in a category, you're competing against all the other books or products in that category, and you're basically competing for who's the best. If this book had been called How to Retire Early, it wouldn't have worked so well because now it's categorized as, oh, that's a retirement book. A lifestyle business was a new category because at the time there were kind of only two options. There were traditional businesses, then there were startups, which are hustle culture. You work really, really hard in the hopes of a huge, huge payoff, high failure rate. Tim introduced lifestyle businesses, which is one owner and a bunch of contractors as needed, and it's super high profit, but also high in freedom. And so all of a sudden you have these nomadic entrepreneurs who are traveling around and they're doing e-commerce, which now is like all the rage. Tim introduced that category, and as a result, when you create a category, you by default become the #1 solution in that category. You don't have any competition to start. And so all these authors tried to follow in his footsteps and compete, and they were going to all lose. Tim got all of the upside. If you're interested in learning more about how to create a category with your book, I recommend the book, The 22 Laws of Category Design by the Category Pirates. That is a good workbook to really explore how to go about this. So the third thing that made this book successful is it was insanely valuable. The way that Tim went about making this book was super interesting. He wrote this book for two real people that he actually knew. One of the biggest mistakes that authors make when they write a book is they're writing it for this mass audience in their mind, this huge crowd, even the world. That's a really fatal flaw when writing a book. The Bible's not for everybody, right? 50 Shades of Grey is not for everybody. And those books have sold millions and millions and millions of copies. And so Tim wrote this for two real people, And he wrote the chapters as though he was writing emails to these real friends of his because he wanted to help them. And he knew that if he wrote it in an email, you can't really BS a real person or friend that you know. The other thing that he does really well is if you look at the table of contents, it reads like a really compelling roadmap. There's these 4 major milestones that I have to complete to get to the 4-hour work week. That roadmap takes the reader very consistently and transforms them. And that is huge. A lot of books don't focus on a rapid, consistent transformation of the reader. They just get up and they're like, let me share my thoughts, let me share my philosophy. And especially now, every content consumer has evolved. People don't have shorter attention spans, what they have is higher standards. Adding on to that, there is external proof that the reader's life has changed because of the book. And I remember one of the smartest things that Tim did in this book to kind of make this book go viral. At the time, people weren't really utilizing email autoresponders in a meaningful way. He gave readers a script. Tell people that you only check email once or twice a day in order to maximize productivity and to not get distracted, etc. And all of a sudden, this autoresponder was everywhere. So give some thought in your book to how can I give people a clear before and after? How can I give them something that will immediately change their life in some way that friends of theirs can notice that transformation, comment on it, be envious of it, have some sort of emotional reaction to it? That can be really effective marketing for your book. Let's talk about the title. This is the single most important marketing decision that any author can make for their book. If you're going to focus your energy on one thing and one thing alone, let it be the title. And in my humble opinion, The 4-Hour Workweek is one of the greatest book titles ever devised. Very first thing is it is worth commenting on no matter what side of the fence that you're on. If you want that, you're like, sweet, that's amazing. What is it about? I have tons of questions. How do I achieve that? For the reader who's not interested in it, they have a visceral emotional reaction and they want to comment on it. That's bullshit. There's no such thing as a 4-hour work week. What is he trying to do? They think they know the message before they've ever dived into the book. That is a hallmark of a wonderful title. Everybody has something to say about it. And so with your title, think about, is this even worth talking about? Is it worth sharing? Is it fun to say out loud whether you're for it or against it? It's very difficult to market a book or have your readers market your book if your title is embarrassing to say, is clumsy to say, awkward, etc. So when I was naming my book, Play It Away, my original working title was How I Cured My Anxiety. And I was leaning toward that because I'd written a blog post that had gone viral, millions of people had read it, and so I was like, certainly that's the title, but not thinking about that's optimized for a search engine, not for what people talk about. And so I picked Play It Away because, well, you know, it's kind of a fun play on words. It rhymes as well, and it was easy to remember, and it was relatively fun and non-embarrassing for somebody to say. So if you tell somebody, hey, I got a great book for you to read, it's called How I Cured My Anxiety, like, it's an insult to the person they're talking to. But Play It Away sounds much more palatable, interesting. There's questions that come up. It's a much better choice than the original. Next on the list, the book is timely and timeless. If you think back on that time when the book came out, everybody hated their corporate jobs and wanted to escape into doing something more meaningful. And it was something that millions of people were frustrated with, and Tim capitalized on it by giving them a real recipe to actually successfully leave their corporate job, or just to stay at their corporate job, keep getting paid as much as they were, but not have to work nearly as hard. And so think about with your book, is there a current cultural zeitgeist that is happening right now that is a deep truth that millions of people are silently screaming about? that they don't have a voice for. They don't have a meaningful recipe to solve this problem. If you look in pop culture right now, there was a song that came out recently that got 50 million downloads or views in like a week or two, and it was Rich Men North of Richmond. And it's a great song, but read through the comments on the YouTube video. It is a bunch of people saying, you have given words to something I have been internally resentful and angry and depressed about for so long, and no one's really given me a voice. And so think about that with your book. What is going on right now that you could tap into, that you could help people with and make it timely? The other element of this that's so important is the timelessness of it. And Tim had a recipe that has worked for over a decade now and continues to work. One of the things Tim told me is he's not interested unless he can write a book that can be like #1 for a minimum of 10 years. And so you don't want it to be so timely that it'll fall off, like a tell-all book about Trump in office or something. Like those spike and then fall. You want something that's going to last for at least a decade. Next, Tim successfully launched the book. Now, a book launch is not essential to a book's long-term success, but it does make a huge difference right up front. Tim, at the time, did one of the most successful book launches in history. He jokes that his marketing plan for his book was get drunk with bloggers, but he was really intelligent about it. He mapped out, okay, who's my target audience? Okay, great. Who are the people that are really speaking to them right now? And it was tech bloggers. It was people like Robert Scoble, Tucker Max. And so what Tim did was he allocated a portion of his marketing budget to go fly out and meet these people and hang out with them. And he would get drinks with them and get to know them. And then what he did when the book came out is he would send them the book and highlight one chapter or even as little as 2 or 3 pages. And he would say, I think you would really love this, and I think your audience would find it really helpful too, and he would make it very personalized. And so all of a sudden, all these people all shared his book all at the same time. And so you couldn't escape it. It created this echo chamber effect that the book was everywhere to the people who were the perfect target audience. And so that is generally a very smart tactic that any author can take is, can you get people who are already speaking to your target audience to have a conversation with their audience about your book? You cannot expect them to do that just from an email alone. If you email them and be like, hey, would you do this favor? They're gonna ignore you. So you do, I think, have to invest the time, energy into meeting them, having a relationship or a friendship with them, and being a person of value and being a person who's interesting and not just somebody who is trying to take. That's really the secret to networking, in my opinion, is like just befriend people and they'll want to help you if you've been helpful to them. Another important thing with launches is you have to create a sense of urgency and scarcity. One of the things that Tim did, again, was he leaned into doing contests. And so there was a reason to take action. There was a thing to do. It wasn't just buy this person's book. It was, hey, complete this thing related to the book. And actually, I talked with a guy who was like, I won an all expenses paid round trip to anywhere in the world during that launch because he participated. And so think about that for your launch is how can you create a contest or an experience that readers will want to participate in that is more valuable for them than it is for you. Just you wanting to hit the bestseller list is not a compelling reason for readers to participate in the success of your book. The final thing I'll say about titles is it is the most important marketing decision that you can make, and a tool that I love is called PickFu. It allows you to create a poll where you can list a bunch of title ideas and then they'll put it in front of readers who will rank it, and then they'll write down, here are the reasons why I like this title and here's why I dislike this title. One of the things that Tim did that was really smart when he was picking the 4-Hour Workweek was he ran ads to the names. So he had, I think, dozens of book title ideas, including the Chameleon Millionaire, drug dealing for fun and profit, bad ideas, right? But among them was the 4-Hour Workweek. And what he found was when he ran Google ads to them, the 4-Hour Workweek outperformed every other option, I think by 2x. So it was the clear winner. You can do the same thing using PickFu, where you can very clearly and quickly see which of your title ideas is the strongest. So that is my list for the 4-Hour Workweek, why that book was such a success. I'm curious if you think I have missed something, which I'm certain I have. Leave a comment below, and also let me know if there's anything on this list that you took away and found particularly valuable and will add to your book. Thanks for watching.